G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. Lots to talk about. We've got the heartbreaker that we're going to move on from. We've got Sloane's match review. We've got lots to talk about in the lead up to the Collingwood game, so let's get straight into it, shall we? G'day everyone and welcome to a special interview this morning. What's going on with that? Number one ruckman
turned on, which we shouldn't have.
The club, Riley O'Brien. How you going, Riley?
Yeah, good, Rob. Thanks for having me
on. Did the same as last
week.
Lovely to have you, mate. And you told me beforehand
Hang on,
Pete. Bright and early up for another training run. What's on this morning at the club?
Yeah, we're back into it. We've had a few days
thing?
off for a long weekend, sort of 3 days coming into the season, and now back
Shut
into
up, Riley.
that.
Right. Here we are. Welcome. It wouldn't be the CrowCast without a live stream glitch, and I've become quite an expert at it over the years. Peter, how are you?
Part of the romance of live recording, live broadcast, I should say. Yeah, I'm really well, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad for a Tuesday, thanks. I've still got my work gear on, and I've just realised that the shirt is one of those glary shirts, so I apologise for that, those people on YouTube, but never mind, I'm sure we'll work through it. Don't forget, if you want to join our live studio audience, hop onto Discord and get into the audience. You can have your say during the course of the evening, or else you can just chat away on Discord or YouTube, and thanks to everyone for joining us on both of those two platforms. Now, Pete, I had Macca and Nikki on Sunday night, and towards the end of the night, we had a bit of a stoush about the relative merits of. No, it was going along fine. We were getting along great, like old friends. You know, we hadn't seen each other for a while, and it lasted about an hour, and then it all went to shit. Oh dear. So I don't think we'll bother talking about it tonight, unless you've got anything you'd like to say about the Beveridge/Morris affair.
No, nothing to say about that. I just sometimes get annoyed that it distracts from the footy, but no, I've got nothing to say about it.
Very good. We'll move on. Okay. Your thoughts about the weekend's game, just quickly?
Yeah, I was at the game, and enjoyed watching. I was sitting up high, and it's always good to watch up there and just see how the game fans out. And I actually thought that Freo, were the better side on the day, just in terms of their ball movement and their spread and their what we refer to as rondo out of stoppage and then their breakaway. And it was just it was actually really, really sort of quite sort of nice to watch. They had a really, really good game system going there. And look, we got back into it with with the real blue collar, sort of roll your sleeves up and go one-on-one and really sort of force contest after contest, and we did a good job with that. But there was some, I'm sure you talked about it on Sunday, just some really glaring stuff in that first half. I'm sure you've done that to death, and you just have to move on from that and take the positives out of the game. And there was a lot of positives. Obviously, Rachele was outstanding, and also, the comeback itself was outstanding. And I think, unfortunately, what happens in AFL when you've got two teams that are, not too far apart, is that obviously the game goes in momentum swings, and when you've got that momentum, you've got to really make.
Yeah, no, agree, mate. It was an unfortunate end. It was a good comeback. It was a shocking first half. But, we're a side on the rise, and we're a rebuilding team, and we've still got lots of holes to plug. As I mentioned on Sunday night, my only real disappointment was the midfield selection, and hopefully that changes a bit. I just felt like we were a little bit sluggish, and I also felt, Pete, that it was actually the kids that got us back into the game in the second half.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Rachele was unbelievable, and Lockie Sholl was fantastic when he came on, and there was a number of others. I thought though, Harry had a difficult day, and I think overall the midfield had a pretty average day. They were beaten pretty comfortably out of the middle, and you just can't get away with that in the way the game's being played at the moment, and all the issues and the worries that we have about our midfield, are there, and they're stark, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, saying that we've sort of plugged in some real talent sort of all around the ground, but we just don't seem to be able to plug it in the midfield. And this is where we desperately need a player like Rachele to, as good as he was, we need him pushing up the ground. Look, he did it a couple of times. He pushed up to the ground, and he looked really, really classy. He made space. He used the ball well, and I'm sure that there's room there for him to run through the midfield. But there's some real issues, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Look, I thought that we upped the frontal pressure in the second half, which started to make Freo burn the ball a little bit. They were pretty much given free rein, open space in the first half on the outside of the contest. And once we started to get in their faces a little bit and force turnovers, we looked a little bit more dynamic. So, I was a little bit disappointed with Nixie's presser. He alluded to the fact that he gave them a bit of a rip after the game and felt that was probably a little bit over the top. I'm not sure. I think if you want to build a winning culture, then at some stage you've got to actually be accountable for poor performances, and I felt like our first half warranted a massive rip, really. So, I have no problems with Nixie being up front with them. And I understand press conferences are for show and all the rest of it. I just felt like there was a lot of generic stuff in his conference, and we've been through 2 years of that, and I think it's time that we heard from the coach in black and white, nuts and bolts, and no sugarcoating, because we've had that in the past, and look where it got us.
Yeah, that's right, and I think that the coach himself needs to take some responsibility for some of that, Jordan Dawson in particular. Now, this is, the thing that, concerns me about this, Fane, is that, we just, whether it be the draft or whether it be trading, we just don't, seem to be able to restock that midfield. And there's all this talk pre-season about, Jordan Dawson's going to play in the midfield, and then he ends up sort of, at the bottom of packs, and he ends up, in the forward line in the first half, and all this kind of bells and whistles about what Jordan Dawson's going to do. And then lo and behold, when you put him in his position where he's made his name,
he does what you recruited him for.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I didn't see Nixie's presser, but I don't know if he, made mention of that at all.
He mentioned that he felt it was a bit of a big ask to put Geordie in the guts first up from a spell. So that's probably an admission of a bit of an error. There are a couple of other errors, I thought. Wayne Miller looked severely undercooked, and I don't think there was any reason for him to be in the side. And there was one or two other players that were in the side that were a bit undercooked as well. So, it's not as if we were short on players.
It was funny that we talked Tuesday night about the fact that we just didn't think there'd be any surprise. Well, I said I didn't think any surprises for selection. There really was. There was a few. Rowie played well, so there's no criticism there. But he was certainly a surprise selection. Miller was a surprise selection. I still thought Saligo was a bit of a surprise.
I agree. I don't reckon he was ready, and he didn't look ready through. I mean, he did some nice things in the pre-season, Pete, but I didn't think he showed enough to warrant selection over a couple of other lads that I thought had been travelling all right, and particularly with the balance of the team. We needed some. We just needed a bit more. I'm not going to say experience, but it's the lad's first game, and you're charging him with the responsibility of the wing. And he got torched. He got towed up in the first half. He wasn't anywhere, and that's to be expected.
The real problem that we've got is that, to my eye, in terms of our midfield structure, we've really only got one player, and that's Ben Keys, we've got, Crouch and Sloane, who are first touch midfielders. Keys is the only one who can really, burst away from those initial 2 or 3 rondo handballs.
Yeah.
And he does that. He does it pretty well. And Harry is almost the next play on from that. But in terms of actually, getting on the end of those, those first 2 or 3 handballs from stoppage, Keys really is the only one that has that capability of moving through a bit of traffic.
Agreed.
And I know it can be frustrating because he wheels around a little bit, but that's okay. That's just how he does it.
Yeah.
And it's only one player. It's only one player that can do that, and then there's just, and when Lairdy comes back, he'll be, he's just another first touch kind of midfielder. So I feel like we're top ended with first touch mids, and we just don't, Keys is really the only player that we've got that can get on the end of that and just make a little bit of space away from stoppage.
Yeah. Not a lot of blokes that can get separation around congestion. Keys is certainly one of them. Again, we'll talk about Rachele. He's only a kid, but he looks like he's got a step as well. And you don't have to be lightning fast. You just have to be agile, and he looks agile. I just feel like we were showed up for, and as is always the case, when you're playing Crouch and Sloane around the contest, what happens is that they both go for the ball. Yeah, and time again, you would see Freo committing one player to the ball, but then, it's circling the pack waiting for the out. And we tended to have 2 or 3 at the contest.
Absolutely. You've got
because
M1,
we play that see ball, get ball sort of thing.
Yeah. We've basically got M1, 2 and 3 all there, and then really all they're doing is they're just still committing only M1, and they've got 2 and 3 sitting outside where they should be. Yeah. 2 being the balance, and and it just, particularly in that first half, the amount of, setting clearances was I think 16-9 or something like that, and so and with the 6-6-6 world, that is just not good at all.
No, I think the club really needs to make a call on Sloane. I have no problem with him being in the side. I understand that we need experience. But it must be crushing for Sloane at the moment to be flogging his guts out at the coalface, knowing that he's just a yard off pace and he can't break away anymore. And he's still got a lot to offer. He's good on the outside, he's great overhead, and I just wish we would actually utilise him in a role that played to his strengths, and as Nick's always says, allows him to show his weapons rather than basically sacrificing him in the midfield and sacrificing any sort of speed and agility we've got in the midfield. I have no problem with Crouch playing as the cold-faced mid. He's very good at distributing the ball. He gets a lot of the ball just by the nature of how he plays the game. He's not my favourite player, but in terms of that role, he's probably, him and Laird are the 2 in our team that can really play that cold-face role. I'd rather see Sloane running off half-back or leading up from half-forward, to be honest.
Yep. But all that aside, Fiend, plenty of positives to take out, I thought, and even in just learning how to ice games, and Riley will, he'll, I suspect, never ever kick across for a short chip option in a close game ever again in his life. And he would have learned his lesson. The player that really worried me in the first half was Chase Jones. I still really worry about. He just does some odd things, and I don't know. I see him get near the ball, and I just think, what sort of odd thing is going to happen here? And I don't know. It's someone here, I guess.
Yeah, well, a few people have mentioned footy IQ, and I think that's probably, from an outside perspective anyway, that's probably the area I think where Chase struggles. He gets around it. He doesn't take a backward step. He's got plenty of courage. He's got good speed, and in the right circumstances, he's got good disposal. But his decision making is terrible, and his positioning is often terrible as well. He often gets caught ball watching.
He just. I mean, there was one right under my nose, which was the southwestern pocket, and I reckon it would have been the first or third quarter when Freo were kicking to the right. and the ball came in. He ran around the ball in a big circle.
Mm.
Because he couldn't quite pick up the line of the ball, and he kind of ended up running in a big circle around it and allowing the Freo player to come and scoop it, but fortunately kicked it behind. And then there was a time when just things like when he's facing up off the mark, and so they take those 3 or 4 quick steps backwards to face up off the mark. And then as he was running backwards, he just kind of his legs just kind of went sideways, not because it was going to help where he wanted the ball to go. Then because he was going in a different direction, but then he gets called to play on. He ends up having to kick under pressure because he runs off his line. He didn't even realise he was doing it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it's awareness. Just general awareness. Yeah, exactly. We hit the same word. It just seems to be lacking. And look, I hope he comes good. He played some good games during last season, and you felt like he may have found his spot. But with Mitch Hinge coming through and Geordie Dawson coming through and Wayne Miller, for that matter, all halfback flankers. Andy McPherson probably another one who worries me in that role, but we've got a couple in the twos. Yeah, I'm just about ready to say, the problem with Andy is that his best is good, but there's a massive gap between his best and his worst. His worst is when he's off, he is terribly off, in my opinion. And I don't know whether he can. He certainly hasn't nailed down a first 22 spot yet, in my opinion.
No, but look, on a positive, lots of I thought that obviously that third quarter was an outstanding quarter of football, and they did very, very well. I thought Ned McHenry did some really good things. I think he's growing as a player, and a few. I thought Rowie had a pretty good game.
Had a blinder.
I thought Brodie Smith had one of the better games I'd seen. He might just benefit a little bit from being released by Jordan Dawson in that sort of distribution role.
Yeah.
So I think Brodie looks set to me for a good season. He looks fit. He did some really good things.
That rundown smother was sensational.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. It was
came from. He wasn't even in the frame watching it on the TV.
Yeah. And Geordie Dawson, of course, in his second half, the way that he could distribute the ball. There was one in that third quarter where he's just hit a bullet from deep in defence, and it's just opened up the whole ground.
I know the one you're talking about, up the middle.
Jeez.
Surfsize in the chat raises a good one. Paddy Parnell might be one that the club could look at in Chaser's spot. Very small as well, but certainly got a lot to like about him. So, there's a few, we could talk about selection all night, but I think it'll be very interesting to see how the club react to the loss and to the first half. Obviously, we're going to have at least one force change with McPherson, you would think. There probably needs to be a couple more. I think Jake Saligo probably comes out. Lockie Scholl needs to stay in. He played well when he came on the ground. For balance, there might be one other. I think one of Gallant or Cook probably needs to be in there. A lot of questions about Elliot Himmelberg again. I thought, again, what Elliot did, he did well, but he didn't do enough of it, and that's the ongoing knock with Elliot, that when he's in the frame, he will, he's good below his knees and all the rest of it, but he's just doesn't get involved enough, in my opinion.
No, he could do more. I think he does suffer from actually playing. I thought, the classic bit of Elliott's play where he gets no recognition whatsoever is in that third quarter where he leads up exactly where he should be, leads up right through the centre part, just up towards actually it was in the first quarter. Sorry. And defender spot. Defender has to spoil. He's caught behind, otherwise Elliott marks it. He punches the ball, goes straight to his feet. Jimmy Rowe, as a smart small forward, is right there, and then there's your first goal. And Elliott gets nothing for that, but creates the goal. And so I think he had about 3 score involvements. He had a goal assist to Rachele, and so but you're right. He needs to do more. But the problem for Elliott is that he is always going to be the forward that's got the 2 or 3 guys jumping against him.
Yeah.
That's the way that they're doing it. But when they're going long, they're going generally speaking, they're going long to Elliott. So I just don't think if they're going to cast him in that role, and it may well be that they're happy. And we've talked about this before, Fiend, about the Robin kind of thing. It may just well be that they're happy with that role that he's playing, noting. And then, the coaches they'll know that creating the contest causes a goal, even though it doesn't get a stat.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether they see it that way or not.
You were at the ground, weren't you, Pete?
Yep.
Yeah. My feeling from watching it on the telly was that he was actually playing too deep. I would like to see him up between centre and centre half forward rather than playing backward of centre half forward. And it felt to me that often he was just too deep to get up to those contests at high half forward, and I'd like to see him just play that 50 to 70 metre, line across the ground and just own that, just to get him, because with him and Riley and Fogg 30 or 40 metres out from goal, it becomes a bit of a mess.
Yeah, look, there was a couple of times he came out. I know in that last quarter he let out pretty nicely, and he did a nice bit of play that created opportunity for Rachele that he hit the post with. But yeah, there wasn't a lot, and I do feel as though he seems to be the deep target, and he seems to be the designated, one that cops the traffic.
But the thing with that is, again, Pete, sorry to cut you off there, but we've got a couple of lads that have got a little bit of wheels about. We've got a bit of lung capacity. You could very easily elastic band Riley and Elliott high and deep. I guess my point is they don't need to be both in the same area of the ground. And to me, too often they were both in the same vicinity. I think they need to have very distinct roles that can be interchangeable. And it just doesn't seem like we've got that right yet. I was also surprised that he didn't at any stage take a centre bounce. It was him. It was O'Brien or Himmelberg. O'Brien or Tilthorpe.
Yep.
This week.
No, he didn't take any ruck at all. What do you think of Darcy's game?
Yeah, look, I thought it was all right. I thought he tried to make something happen early, and then oh shit, sorry. My camera just fell over. I felt like when Freo got on top, that made it difficult for Darcy to have any sort of influence. But I feel like the way that midfield were playing in the first half just didn't lend itself to any sort of forward ascendancy whatsoever. So I wasn't unhappy with his play. Again, you could always ask for more from Darcy, but I wasn't unhappy with this game. How did you see it?
Yeah, look, it was a real sort of copybook Darcy game, wasn't he? Flashes into the game and kicks a couple of goals in a couple of minutes, and won a glorious set shot. And what you give to have had the ball in his hands for those last couple of set shots in the last quarter. No, I think that you've got to. With the forwards, I think you've got to accept that realistically they were only properly involved in the game for the second half. Because the first half was just so diabolical. It was dire. The amount of out of bounds on the full, the amount of turnovers. You would have gone through the stats. It was dire.
Yeah.
Harry looked like he hadn't played football for 5 years.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell was wrong with Harry. Whether he was, I don't know. I honestly think Harry would have gone to bed and I hope the coaches told him, look, that's just one to put in the box and forget about, because they happen sometimes, and it was unfortunate for him. He had one of those games and, no rhyme or reason, just put it away. He got enough of it. He got around it and got enough of it, but God, his disposal, I think his disposal efficiency was just above 50%. Not great. Never.
I've been a bit, I walked away from the ground. You never like suffering 1 point, losses, and as Vardy Magic said, that in our history we've had 4 1-point games with Fremantle. We've lost them all.
Yeah.
And I think I pointed out last Tuesday, I really don't like our record at Adelaide Oval against Freo. That we just,
for some reason,
we just do not have a good record against them at Adelaide Oval. And you just put that. I mean, look, this time last year we beat a top 4 team by 70 points or 60 points or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was.
It was enough.
We were in front by a long way. I think we played in the end, but 9 teams have to lose for round 1, and we were one of them. And you just sort of start again. And I'm not, a 1-point game like that, and the way that we got ourselves back into the game, there was plenty of positives to take. And,
the other positive to take from the weekend was the form of Luke Pedlar in the twos. Played very well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Would have to be, and Luke Pedlar doesn't strike you as a fast player, but he certainly is one player. You talk about getting separation from congestion, Pete. And he is quick of foot around the contest, and he can get that separation. So, whilst he's not a speedster, I wouldn't call him a speedster. He's certainly not slow, but he's very agile around contests and quite level-headed around contests. So, I reckon he's one to look at.
It's not all about speed. It's a lot of it. I mean, Ben Keys isn't lightning fast. It's about having that confidence and that ability in yourself to be able to, back yourself to get that separation when the heat's really on.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, let's do what the Crows hopefully have done and put that game behind us, and we'll move on. And before we go on, don't forget, if you want to have a chat with us on Discord, you can join the live stage. 1990, I think you had your hand up. Yeah. Come in, mate. We'll give you a bit of a crack. How you going?
Hey, thanks, Pete. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine, mate.
Just wanted to say a couple of things. The first one, just about the game that's gone. I thought our coaches made another mistake early in the season that they made last season in playing a player in a position that obviously wasn't suited to the team. And it backfired early, and it was quite evident after the first half that they'd made a mistake. And I just feel like that's 2 years in a row that they've made this mistake. Last year, if you remember, we had Billy Frampton for the first 7 or 8 games get first preference over Himmelberg.
Yeah.
And it was plain for everyone that was watching that it didn't make any sense as to why Frampton had been picked ahead after the end of 2020 when Elliott was actually playing quite well and had surpassed Frampton to become that first choice, and then all of that seemed to go to waste, and they led with Frampton for the first half of last year. So didn't learn, and that cost us. And then in this year, first half, they decided to play our number 1 recruit, who had been dominating at halfback at Sydney Swans, Jordan Dawson, in the centre. And he looked nowhere near it. He'd just come off an injury. Our first half was just diabolical, and I thought a lot of our positioning of key personnel was just horrific, and it led to that result. You had Dawson in the centre, you had Lockie Scholler as sub. As soon as he came on for McPherson, we looked a 100% better side. And then you had your usual suspects like Sloane, Crouch in the centre with no pace, and we got the first half that we deserved.
Yeah. Well, Geordie coming off a calf, that's not an easy injury to come off of, because you can basically do nothing while you're bringing that back. And they can be an injury that hang around annoyingly. I think Nick's probably realised his error, and putting him back when Scholl came on was a good move.
I just don't understand how we get to that instance in the first place, though. Like it's round one.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
150 days to think about it.
Is it arrogance, or is it outsmarting yourself?
You know what? Can I use a cricket analogy?
Yeah.
You you would have come across really, really annoying bowlers who'll jump up and say, "Oh, can I keep? Can I keep? I want to keep."
Yeah.
And you have to say, no, get the ball, go back to your mark and bowl.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Geordie Dawson's come to us and say, I want to be a midfielder. I want to be a forward. No, you've made your
Is it
your
Geordie
name
saying that,
as
do you
this-
reckon?
Well, when he came here, when he was in the media, he put saying, I want to move into the midfield and I want to be a forward option, and so he's got all these ideas about what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, they've had training and all the rest of it, so presumably he's worked in those midfield areas or whatever. I'm not sure, but I just think that sometimes you just play the position you should be playing and where you make your name. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Brodie Smith is a classic in that regard. People were screaming for ages that Brodie should be played in the middle, and I reckon Brodie's best football before and after his knee has always been at half-back. It's where he's been at his most damaging. That's where he plays. He's had some good moments in the midfield, but he's not a midfielder. So,
and I think we're left with this position of where we've got 10,000 half-backs again.
We are, 1990.
Jordan Dawson, Mitch Hinge. The whole pre-season talk was around Mitch playing wing.
He's not a wingman.
And he's not a wingman.
No. He's not a wingman. He is a fantastic halfback flanker. Him and Geordie Dawson off halfback, and throw Brodie Smith into the mix there as well, is a very dynamic halfback line. Mitch Hinge is very strong in the air. He's aggressive, straight lines the ball. Geordie is silky smooth, can sneak up the ground and kick you a goal. Brodie Smith similarly can give you lots of rebound off halfback. 3 bona fide A-grade halfback flankers, and the trouble is we've got another 9 of them.
And this is what I was saying at the top of the show, Fane. The issue that we've got is that I feel like we've invested largely in pretty much every position on the ground. We're stocked for small forwards. We've got a number of key forwards playing. We've got all these wings and half backs. We've got a couple of good key defenders now, plus one first rounder whittling away in the reserves. We've got all these positions covered, but what's the one position we seem to have invested nothing in? In the last 5 years.
Yeah, I know.
Only the most important position on the ground.
Yeah, the one where Brownlows are made. We really haven't had a bona fide elite midfielder since Paddy. Not even close. Not even in the same stratosphere. Everyone expected Rory to step up. Rory benefited from Paddy's presence on the ground. He was the classic Robin to Paddy's Batman, and it worked extremely well. Just the same as Andrew McLeod and Tyson Edwards. Used to work extremely well for us as a 1-2 punch, or Mark Rashudo or whatever. They're all different players. At the moment, we're same, and let's not labour the point anymore. But
Anyway.
Well, just to finish that off, Pete, in 1990, what do you think about Jack Hayes just bobbing up for St Kilda after a couple of standout years for Woodville West Torrens?
Yeah, look, it's good for Jack, and it's good for St Kilda for giving him that opportunity that he obviously deserved over the last couple of years. I think he was well above the SANFL grade, deserved his opportunity, and it's great that it's come up for him. I think we'll note that no one actually gave him the chance in the draft, so he obviously wasn't considered highly in the recruiting circles until the pre-season draft. But it's good that it's happened, but I also think we've got to prioritise the Thorpe our end as that tall rucking option, and hopefully get a full forward that can counter with him.
With any danger of trading Elliott back north and grabbing a mid and then rookieing Jack Hayes as that second forward? Pete, you would have seen him a little bit.
I don't think they've got much interest in Elliott, to be honest.
Pete, you would have seen Jack Hayes a little bit.
Oh yeah, he's a terrific Football, it was, the recruiters must scratch their heads when they miss. They miss. The problem is that there's just such a and this is just a whole another episode discussion, but the bias on the system and the system developing young players, the natural bias is just phenomenal. And if you don't, not in that system, if you end up outside of that system in some way, it's just so bloody hard. And you have to really, really have a bit of luck and an incredible amount of perseverance to get yourself back into the system.
How long do you reckon it's going to? No, how long do you reckon it's going to take recruiters to actually be true to what they say? They say that young tools take a few years to develop. And there's very few, even the Max Kings and the Ben Kings and the Riley Thilthorpes and the Harry McKays and those blokes have taken years on a list. Yeah. How long before recruiters start saying, you know what, you go play away in the State League for a couple of years and come back to us when you're 23. I know it's difficult to pass up a young, talented forward, say like a Riley Thilthorpe, but it's a spot on the list, and it's a lot of development time. And look at a situation like Sydney might find themselves in with Logan McDonald, where they'll develop him for 2 years and then he buggers off back to WA anyway. So is it worth the development? Oh, has he re-signed, has he?
Yep.
Oh, well, that's good. That puts that to bed. But do you understand what I mean? Even a lad like Logan's going to take 3 years. Is it worth having a kid on the list for 3? We had Harry Deere on the list for about 4 years. We've had Elliot on the list for 5 years. I just wonder sometimes whether we're better off just plucking these bigger lads out of the twos.
There's another. Remember, Podsy Utley came in. How old was he? 27.
27, I think he was.
And won the Cats flag.
Yep. Tom Hawkins has only got better as he's gotten older.
There's a natural bias. I firmly believe there's a natural bias on some of the lads playing SANFL League football. I mean, you see a few of them picked up here and there, but there's many, many more blokes in the SANFL that could be playing AFL football that would be good enough.
Well, there's not many
right training.
There's not many blokes plucked from the SANFL that have failed that I can think of. When they are pulled out, they generally perform okay. So anyway, we are carrying on very long. Thanks, 1990, for your contribution. If anyone else wants to join us for a bit of a chat quickly, then feel free. In the meantime, let's quickly, before we move on to the Collingwood game, let's cover off a few competitions, shall we, Peter? Because it's all happening. It's all happening in tipping world. I started with a bang. Let me just bring this up. Where is it? Oh, no. It's around here somewhere. Here we are. I started with a bang, Pete. I think I was 4 from 4 on Saturday. I'd picked the upsets going well, and then I didn't do anything after that. So I've got it up here on screen. We've got 59 people in our tipping comp, which is fantastic. So thanks for everyone who's joined in, and thanks for Razor for getting this off the ground. Fantastic. And I think we might chuck a bit of a prize at this. I'm not quite sure what yet, but we'll chuck a bit of a prize at the winner of this one because it's fantastic participation. So we've got Pentmaster, I don't even know what that is, Damo, Captain Jack, Choking Finals, Mutto's Top Guns, Brighton 75, all on 7, Pete. 7. How could you get 7 right out of that?
7, honestly. How could you tip 7?
I don't know. Are you in this?
I haven't registered. I should know.
No, yeah.
It's a bit slack.
So there's me right down there with 4, abysmal.
I'm a terrible tipster.
So am I. I'm too speculative, I'm too speculative. That's my problem. Instead of going for 1 or 2 a round, I go for 4 a round, and they rarely come off. Now, the fantasy one, I can't log into that because I'm not in it. So I'll get one of the 1990 or one of the participants to screenshot the leaderboard for that and chuck it in the channel for tipping and fantasy footy. So you can still, I'm pretty sure you can still join the tipping comp. So get around that at tipping.afl.com.au. I think the links and all that sort of stuff are in the tipping channel, so that's cool. And yeah, as I said, we'll think about a prize. We'll probably announce a prize for this one in the next couple of weeks, just to keep people enthusiastic about it. No one else wants to have a chat, Pete, so at this stage. So why don't we just move on quickly to the match review committee, because Sloane surprisingly got done.
Weird, wasn't it? I don't know.
It was just bizarre.
Very strange. Very strange.
But they appealed and he got off, and with an inch. Look, and I think it was a reasonable defence, but the defence was basically, I wouldn't possibly do that because I've had eye injuries myself. That was the defence.
Yeah,
and they took it. Like, that's pretty weird.
Oh.
I'm not saying it was a wrong decision, but that's what Rory went to the tribunal with. I've had a detached retina. I nearly lost my eyesight. It nearly cost me my career. Yep. I wouldn't go for someone's eye. Okay.
No, I didn't pinch that car because someone pinched my car the other day.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems odd. I mean, I think it's all's well that ends well on this one, and I think the right decision was made. I think one match for that was pretty weird. Sloane, I don't think even realised he was cited until much later.
Terrible report. Really was.
So that's that one. What else happened at the MRP? I think everyone got off, didn't they? Willie Rachele got off. I don't know who else was up, but they probably got off. In terms of injuries, let's focus on us and Collingwood. We've got Lairdy is listed as a test, which I think is pretty optimistic, considering a couple of weeks ago they were saying 4 to 5 weeks, so I wouldn't expect him back this week. McPherson out with a hamstring for a couple. Seed's ongoing, obviously, which is terrible for him, and as usual, our thoughts go out to him. Murphy's recovered from his neck injury, so he'll slot right back into the half-forward line in the ones, of course, and Shane McAdam is also ready to go, and would I'd imagine he'll go back into the twos. I hope Lockie Murphy doesn't come back in, but I'm just being cynical. Collingwood, how are they looking? Mason Cox has done an ankle. He's listed as a test. Charlie Dean, he's out for ages. Nathan Murphy, Jordan Roughhead. So not really many notables there missing for them. Hoskin Elliott is available this week, so that'll strengthen them as well. I don't think they looked great last week, did you, Pete? Collingwood?
No, they'll be too good for us on Saturday, but no, I don't think that they project as a finals team or anything like that.
No, I don't think so. You notice a little bit of difference with McRae's style, but that will take some time to bed in. I still think they're a bit short on cattle. But I agree with you. I think they're just a little bit more mature than us. The biggest interest in the game for mine will be Rachele versus Dacos. See who can kick them. Who can kick the most? Who can look more like Peter Dacos? Because I tell you what, there's a bit of Dacos about Josh Rachele. Although I think it was Surf Soz in the chat on the weekend compared Rachele to hoped that Rachele would project to Robbie Gray, and I think that's the most appropriate comparison in terms of how we'd hope he'd project.
Yeah, definitely. If we could get a Robbie Gray out of him, that would be outstanding.
Yeah. So look, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a hill too high, or a bridge too far, or I don't know what it is.
I don't think on the open spaces of the MCG, I think our midfield will get caught out. It's just too big a ground. It's too circular, and I think that we will struggle in the space.
Well, I agree, Peter, and we had trouble covering the outside with in the narrower confines of Adelaide Oval, and it makes you wonder how we could possibly think that we could cover the outside on the broader expanses. So you're right, something's going to have to change. Selection is going to be very interesting. We've already kind of talked about it. I don't expect wholesale changes, to be honest with you, Pete. I really don't. I think they'll cover the injury and that'll be it.
I think Lockie Shoal will come into the 22 for Moose, and then
Yep.
it would just be a case of an emergency and or what do they call him, an injury sub. I'd like to see. I would hope that Lockie Gallant continues to put selection pressure on, because I think that there's a game for him sooner rather than later.
Yeah. But
I suspect for a 1 point loss, I'd be surprised if they make wholesale changes to that forward line. Although I just think, again, on the MCG, I would really like to see a forward line with Gallant in it, with just giving a little bit more mobility to that forward line on the G rather than.
And he just hunts the ball in the air. I love what he does aerially, because you can tell he's a natural marker. He wants to. He's not afraid of, even when he's out of position, he will still make an effort to take a grab. And they're the sort of blokes you like to see up forward. They can make something out of nothing. The only other possible, I think, is Pedler for Miller, maybe.
Or Saligo, maybe.
Well, yeah. The only trouble with Pedler for Saligo is you basically leave yourself short of wing. I think the natural in for Saligo, if they're going to give him a spell, would be Braden Cook, don't you think?
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly could be right there. I think that they'll persevere with Wayne, though. I think that they'll want to just pump games into him, and just, it's by picking him round one, that sends a message to me that they just want to get him up and running, and as quickly as possible. So I think they'll keep pumping games into Wayne.
The unfortunate one at the moment.
I'm going to go with just the one change.
What's that? Sorry.
I'm going to go with just the one forced change.
Yeah, the unfortunate one at the moment, I feel, is Sam Berry, because you've got, he's the young up-and-coming coalface player who's probably a little bit more dynamic than the seniors that we've got in those positions at the moment. But it seems now that he's going to have to bide his time behind Laird and Crouch, or accept a cameo on the half-forward line. And he's not a forward. They stuck him there because they wanted to put game time into him, but he's not a forward. He's goal-faced mid, and it just seems a bit of a waste for mine.
Well, especially when they invested so many games into him last year.
But that's the thing, you allowed the kid for playing 20 games or whatever it was last year, and then you don't have the confidence to go with him round one. There's some funny things, and there's still. I don't know. There's still to me. There's still elements of tail wagging dog at the Crows, and there's probably a couple more blokes to retire before we really shed ourselves of that mentality. Don't you think?
Look, Fane, I've said it privately, and you know what I think about the 2017 team.
Yeah.
And where we need to be. So anyway, enough said there, but that's been my view for some time, as you well know. And then until we get to that ground zero, I don't think we properly move on.
Yeah. The only other one to talk about, and Surf's Oz again in the chat has reminded me, Riley O'Brien. Could he be in any danger with Kieran Strachan?
Well, I think Kieran's going to continue to put pressure on him. He's had another excellent game, and I've always been a rap for Strawny. I think he's a very, very talented player. I think at the moment, Rob's pre-season was good enough that they'll persevere with him. But, there is some selection. What I am liking as a general proposition, Fiend, is I do like there's some selection pressure at the moment. There's some real push coming from underneath where there hasn't been in previous years. So I think that they'll give these guys, a few games. But I think that, look, if Strawny keeps going, he's a very, very accomplished player, and he's got good skills.
Yeah. I'm happy to accept Riley's deficiencies as a tap ruckman if I see influence around the ground. And unfortunately, for large portions of the game on the weekend, we didn't see Riley much or figure prominently at all. So he has to start making his presence felt around the ground.
I was disappointed. I don't know whether it was a pre-prescribed rotation or what it was, but at a critical juncture in the game.
Yes.
I know what he was rotated, and he's in the leadership group. I think that right. If that was a predetermined rotation, then as a leader, he just needs to be getting on the phone and saying to Nick, "See, I need to get on." Yeah. Because I think that we really suffered in that sort of 5 or 10 minutes.
Again, Pete, he went off with 8 minutes to go, and if he had been on the ground in that crucial time, then it would have been him taking that mark and not Riley Thilthorpe. Now, you could argue that Riley O'Brien is not reliable as a kick anyway, but one thing you can guarantee is that he has enough experience to get back off the mark, take his 30 seconds and hoof it down the line.
Yeah.
So again, I mentioned on the weekend that Riley Thilthorpe lacked having an experienced body around him, a Tom Dudeo, Brodie Smith, Rory Sloane, whoever, Luke Brown, just to get to him after he'd taken a very, very good mark out on the outlet kick, taken a very good mark, a timely mark. Someone needed to get around him and just say, take your 30 seconds, and it's only going in one direction, and that's down the ground because we're killing the game now. So,
and worse of all, Rory Sloane calling for the ball.
Well, it was Rory Sloane, wasn't it? Some people said it was Murray, but I was sure it was Rory Sloane.
It was Sloane.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
sure. Everyone, we're just being hammered here now. Everyone's saying it was Murray. Maybe I'm wrong because I was at the other end of the ground. I thought it was Sloane, so apologies if that's the case.
Yeah.
All right,
anyway,
it was Murray.
But someone should have been around. Someone should have been around Riley anyway.
Yep.
There's no way that, and I can't see any game plan where with 7 or 8 minutes to go or less, 5 minutes to go, up by a few with the game with the balance. I don't think there's any blackboard at the Adelaide Footy Club that says kick it diagonally into the corridor from half back. I don't think that's anywhere. In you go through every page in the book. I don't think it's anywhere. No scenario. So never mind. All right. A couple of minutes left. If anyone does want to have a chat, now's the time to do it, or else forever hold your peace. In the meantime, I'll just run through some gratuities, Peter. If you want to support the CrowCast, and we've had some great support this year already by our beloved listeners, you can go to patreon.com/AFLCrowCast and subscribe on a $2 or $5 tier there to get various access to various things. You can also go onto our website and just click on the PayPal donate if you just want to chuck a couple of bucks our way. That's no problem. Don't forget, I'm on a real push this year, Peter, to try and get our numbers up in terms of our subscriptions. There's a few benefits for us getting over 1,000 subs on YouTube, and we're just under halfway there at the moment. I know it doesn't sound like big, but for a niche podcast in a niche market, if we can get to 1,000 subs, that'd be great, because that unlocks a few community features on YouTube that we can then provide some more to our listeners. So make sure you spread the word to your mates on YouTube. Make sure you share videos when you see them. Make sure you share retweet tweets when you see them. Every little bit of support and exposure helps us. So and again, if you feel inclined to give us a positive review on iTunes or one of the other platforms there, if you're an audio listener, then anything would be much appreciated. Now, Peter, we had a big show, kept it under an hour, which is great compared to the weekend wrap of 1 hour 41 minutes. Oh, my goodness me. Yeah, I know. I'm just pushing shit uphill. Anyway, look, it's been good to have a chat again, mate. Collingwood on the weekend. Don't forget that the Discord channel will be live on game day, as it always is. It was great banter last week, so get around it again this weekend if you can. In the meantime, thanks very much for joining us, and we will see you on Sunday night for the Wrap Show.
Good night, all.